Story time about how I intercepted a kidnapping with my pee. I was working as a pizza delivery driver and was having a really busy night, non-stop back and forth without any time to even take a bathroom break. We were going through a bit of a heat wave in our area, so I had also been drinking copious amounts of water. All of a sudden, as I was driving to this particular delivery, the urge to go hit me like a ton of bricks. Thankfully, I was close to the customer so I could get this one over with quickly. Or so I thought. I pulled up to the house and it was in an area I'd delivered to before, so I could immediately tell that something wasn't right. All the lights were off in the house, not even the glow of a television or anything. It was extra apparent because the street light closest to the door happened to be out of order, and to top it all off, the block was dead quiet. This is a big university area and obviously there aren't many student renters in July, but there had to be at least one person because someone ordered this pizza. It was scorching that night, even after sundown. My car's AC is a joke and the piping hot pizzas don't help things much. I called the customer and the voice on the other end sounded out of breath saying, "Yeah?" I said, "Hey, it's your pizza out front, but there doesn't appear to be anybody home." Then the customer replies, still gasping for air, "Yeah, I'm not home." At this point, I felt like my bladder was about to burst and I was much less patient than I'd usually be with a customer right out of the gate, so I replied, "Well, then we're going to have to terminate the order because I've arrived in the stated delivery window and you were supposed to pay in cash, so I don't know what to tell you. Plan ahead next time." I instantly regretted letting my bladder do the talking for me as the voice on the other end came through more clearly as a young, bubbly, and very distraught girl who couldn't have been older than her 20s. She apologized over and over, saying that she lost track of time at work but knew I was coming and she's literally running home right now. She followed up with, "Please don't leave. I'm starving and don't have a car. Seriously, please don't leave. 5 minutes tops, okay?" I know what it's like to be hungry, running late, have no car, and not live near any restaurants. Plus, hearing her voice reminded me of the last few times I delivered here and she'd always been so nice. I felt bad for snapping at her and tried to walk it back while simultaneously looking for potential spots to pee. I apologized to her and told her no rush and that I'd see her when she got there. I started scouting for places to pee, but all the houses were close together and offered no clumps or trees or anything. It was at emergency level now and I had to do something. The safest bet was to use the bush in front of the woman's house. She wasn't home and the streetlight was out so no one would see me. I went to the biggest cluster of bushes to avoid splatter and released. After the initial millisecond of relief, I noticed the sound was way off, more like peeing on something solid than something leafy. I couldn't make out what it was in the darkness, but all of a sudden I heard a deep voice exclaiming, "What the fuck?" Before I could turn around thinking I had been caught by a neighbor, a man came leaping out of the bushes. Part 2. How I intercepted a kidnapping with my pee. The guy in the bushes blew by me, brushing off my golden shower. He spit emphatically on the ground, so I think I got him right in the face. I didn't see where he went after a few paces, but the next part was a bit of a blur. I remember hearing a car screech out after a minute. I got in some night vision at this point, so I was able to make out his general features. I was in shock and stood there trying to figure out what happened. My mind was searching for a reasonable explanation that could make sense of why that man was hiding in the bushes. I started coming up with reasons, but my inner voice was screaming, "Bruh, that man was wearing a hoodie in 90-degree weather. That was a bad man. You're in a bad situation." I still tried to make sense of it and flashed my phone light into the bushes. That's when I saw a bag slightly splashed with pee. This was going to make it all make sense. Once I opened it, I saw a sharp knife, a roll of duct tape, and a bottle of pills. This is when all the delusions broke and my fight or flight kicked in. I dropped the bag, got in my car, and booked it. I called the police and frantically explained everything. The dispatcher was able to calm me down and said he was sending out units. That's when I got a text from the customer. "Hey, I'm here, but I don't see you." I was overwhelmed with guilt and rushed back to her house with my heart pounded at my chest. When I got there, I waved her down and flashed my lights. She bounced over to my car, all happy-go-lucky. I kept whispering, "Get in, get in." And she was like, "Get it? Huh? You want me to get the pizza from the back?" I quickly replied, "There was a man in your bushes. I'm on the phone with police. I don't know where he went. Please get in the car so we can lock the doors." The police came soon after and took our statements. It turns out the reason she got into my car without probing any deeper is because she knew who the man was right away from my description. She had an abusive ex-boyfriend who was apparently psychotic enough that he immediately came to mind from hearing, "There's a guy in your bushes." She later called us to thank me and insisted on leaving a huge tip, but our manager refused and promised that the next time we see her, we'd load her up with enough one free pie cards to last a lifetime. It was easily the scariest thing that's ever happened to me, on or off the job.
Am I the asshole for telling my infertile sister I hope she never has a child? Me, female 24, and my sister, female 27, have never really gotten along. She found out she was infertile very young and it really affected her because she always dreamed of having a big family. When I had my first child, now 2, she freaked out on me. She said I was having a baby just to spite her and she hoped everything goes wrong. I forgave her because she really struggled with alcohol and drugs and claimed she couldn't control her actions. 2 years later, I found out that I was pregnant again. I'm currently 6 months along with a baby girl. My sister seemed okay and congratulated me and offered her home to help me and make sure I'm okay since my boyfriend's in the military. I accepted and soon found out it was a big mistake. Am I the asshole for telling my infertile sister I hope she never has a child? She started acting very weird and almost like she wanted me to miscarry. She would make jokes like, "Imagine if you miscarried," or "How sad would you be if you miscarried?" I actually started fearing for me and my baby's safety when I found out she was using again. She would have random tantrums about the littlest things. One day I got really dizzy and ended up in the ER. Tests were ran and it was confirmed that she was feeding me drugs in hopes that my baby would pass. When I confronted her, she broke down and admitted to everything and said I was selfish for having babies. I said I hoped that she would never succeed in having a kid and that I'm glad she's infertile in front of the whole hospital floor.
My ex and I met when we were both 10. She was and still is my twin sister's best friend, so we've always been kind of a trio growing up. We started dating at 14 and got married at 23. Things got ugly though, because 5 years after getting married, she told me that she had a month-long affair with her coworker. Apparently, the guilt was too much for her, so she confessed. We tried to work through it, but after a few months of trying, I knew that despite the fact that I loved her, I couldn't trust her anymore. She told me that she still loved me and that she'd wait for me and prove that I was the only one. I wanted to believe her, but you know, some things just can't be fixed. We never had kids. 3 years after the divorce, I met my now wife and we got married 2 years after dating. She's everything I could ever dream of in a wife and more. My ex, as my sister told me since they're still besties, never really recovered. She quit her job and is now working at a church. Throughout my relationship with my wife, she kept trying to get back together, and on the day of my wedding, she told me that she still loved me and would love no one else. She said this was the last time that she would bother me, but that she'll wait for however long it took. Apparently, she's honest in that regard because my sister said that she's never been with anyone else. So here's what happened recently. My wife and I, married for 7 years now, have 2 kids. My sister came over with her own kids so the cousins could play. When my wife went to pick out lunch, my sister sat me down and told me the situation about my ex. Apparently, she only has less than 6 months to live. She refused treatment and wants to live the last few months to the fullest. I guess that's why her and my sister really went out of their way to travel despite the pandemic. One thing on her bucket list though was that she wanted to feel like my wife again. No sex, no kissing, she just wanted me to be around the house again and maybe hold her from time to time. She still lives in the house that we lived in. I told her that I wouldn't do that because it was pretty much emotional cheating. My sister kept arguing and begging me to at least see her and hear her out. We kept arguing until my wife came back. My sister told her the whole story, and while she looked upset, she said that she understood where my ex was coming from. When my sister left, my wife and I talked about it. My wife knows everything that happened in the past with my ex. She says while she isn't thrilled about the idea, she won't get upset if I decide to go see her on a regular basis. My wife is literally the best thing that ever happened to me, and I love her more than anyone. She makes me happier than I've ever been in my life, even in the good times with my ex. She knows I won't cheat. I also have zero romantic feelings for my ex, so there's nothing lingering there. I don't hate her or anything, it's just the love that I had for her has long since died. After thinking about it for a while, I'm honestly 50-50 on it. I know I don't owe her anything, but I feel like I might regret not seeing her at least one more time since the last time I saw her was on my wedding day, and that wasn't a good encounter for either of us. I honestly feel like, despite what she did, she still deserves to go with some peace. On the other hand, I'm not entirely sure if this might potentially affect our marriage. My wife says she's okay with it, and I believe her, but I just can't be sure that she'll feel the same way after it happens. I don't want anything to jeopardize what I have right now, no matter what. I'm not too thrilled about going myself, to be honest. What should I do? Part 2. My ex wants me to be with her in her last days. I talked to my wife and had a long discussion about the whole situation. I assured her that no matter what, she is and always will be my first priority. I also reassured her that while I wanted to say my goodbye, I would never act like her partner. It would be more like me seeing a childhood friend or something like that. I also said I would never spend the night, nor would I be alone with her. She was more comfortable after our talk and was pretty okay with the idea of me seeing my ex again. Originally, she really felt like she was being forced into being okay with it when my sister asked, but this time, she was really okay. I talked to my sister, and after a long heated discussion, she agreed to the boundaries my wife and I set. A week later, my sister and I came over to our old marital home. It was surreal because while the emotions from years before came back to me, I didn't feel any sadness, hatred, or anything negative. I saw my ex, who was waiting for us in the living room, and she cried when I walked in. You could tell almost immediately that something was wrong with her. I indulged her with a hug and we talked for a few hours while my sister made lunch. I showed her pictures of my kids and told her stories about what they're like. Honestly, I didn't know how I would react after I saw her again, but it just feels like seeing an old friend you haven't seen in a long time. There was no hate or anything like that. I walked around the house and it was pretty much the way it was when I left over a decade ago. I'm not really sure how I feel about our wedding photos still framed in pictures of us all over the house, but it really wasn't my place to say anything. The 3 of us had lunch and played board games all afternoon. It honestly felt like we were back to when we were kids and the 3 of us would hang out together. It was nice. I left around 6. She was sad, but she understood. When I hugged her goodbye, she whispered I love you to me, but then said how she's happy I was able to find the happiness she couldn't give me. That part got to me, and to be honest, I was fighting back tears. I told her that I'd see her again soon, and she asked if I could bring my kids next time. I told her I would and left to pick up dinner for my family. I told my wife everything that happened, and she was quite happy about the outcome. I guess it helped that I brought home her favorite food, but she also agreed to let me bring the kids next time. Overall, it was a great experience seeing her again. I feel like I needed that, and I would have regretted not doing so. She made a mistake and paid the price, but it doesn't mean that she's an evil person.